It's time to have another conversation about one of the most controversial topics in gaming, skill-based matchmaking. Activision developers gave us some additional insight on SBMM, and engagement-optimized matchmaking, or EOMM, can also be a factor here. But we'll dive into what we know in this video, and then we'll talk about what we can do to reduce the effects of SBMM or EOMM. You can try these currently in Modern Warfare 3 and in Black Ops 6 when it is ready to roll. If this is your first time here, welcome, and if you dig the video, consider subscribing as we chase down our first 1,000 here on the channel, and feel free to light up the comment section as we go along. Let's go ahead and get rolling. So skill-based matchmaking is a system used in many online multiplayer games to ensure that players are matched with others of similar skill levels. The goal is to create balanced and competitive matches, making the gaming experience more enjoyable for everyone involved. Activision explains why skill-based matchmaking remains in Call of Duty. Activision have released a detailed paper explaining how Call of Duty's controversial skill-based matchmaking system works. This blog is the first major update on the system since their first statement back in November, promising more transparency. The company said that team balancing is a key factor, allowing Call of Duty to form games where players can have fun and enjoy competitive matches. Skill-based matchmaking has been in Call of Duty since 2007's Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, and the system was updated with more capabilities, starting with Modern Warfare 2019. The blog revealed that Activision explored adding a playlist where skill factor is removed from matchmaking, but the current concern is that it would lead to only high-skill players being in the matchmaking pool, as low and mid-skill players would not join. Activision noted that both unranked and ranked playlists have a skill factor in matchmaking because new players may not participate in ranked. It's important they can contribute meaningfully to their team and their own personal in-game achievements, they said. The game assesses a player's skill level based on various factors such as the win-loss ratio, the kill-death ratio, and other in-game performance metrics. Players are then grouped into matches with others who have similar skill ratings. This helps to ensure that no single player or team has a significant advantage over others, and there are always constantly adjustments being made. The system constantly updates and adjusts the skill ratings as players win or lose matches, ensuring that the matchmaking remains accurate over time. Overall, SBMM aims to provide a fair and challenging environment for players, regardless of their skill level, but the core Call of Duty fanbase finds this pretty frustrating. The Call of Duty team looks at calculating skill in multiplayer based exclusively on match performance. Player progression or total time spent playing the game are not factored into skill. The skill factor rating of each player changes over time, and the skill rating is compared to every player in a match. Activision keeps skill factor in matchmaking despite the negative feedback because when skill is utilized in matchmaking, 80 to 90% of players experience better end of match placement, stick with the game longer, and quit matches less frequently. The paper explains that while the top 10 or 20% may experience some negative effects, completely removing skill from the system would result in two issues. Low and mid-skill players would quit faster, leading to a matchmaking pool mainly composed of higher skilled players. This will result in consistently more competitive matches for all players instead of a better team balance. The white paper revealed that Activision have run tests in Modern Warfare 3's multiplayer where skill factor was reduced in matchmaking for a portion of the player base. According to the paper, 50% of North American Modern Warfare 3 players were a part of a multiplayer test that reduced skill factor earlier this year. So I wouldn't be surprised if my account was one of the crash test dummies during this multiplayer test. It seemed like in the first quarter, lobbies were significantly easier. Whether I was playing solo or playing with a squad of 6, I started to question if they removed skill-based matchmaking altogether, especially because at the time, that was when ranked play was introduced, which I still think should absolutely be the case. I think we should have no skill-based matchmaking in public matches and only in ranked matches. But who am I though, right? But for me, that did only last for about a week or so, but this definitely answers some questions. Let us know if you noticed a shift in the matchmaking experience earlier this year, if you can remember, that is. The test showed that players with a wider skill gap were more likely to quit matches in progress and did not return to the game at a higher rate than players with unchanged matchmaking, said Activision. The paper reveals that retention amongst those in lower and mid-skill brackets reduced by over 1%. With deprioritized skill, returning player rate was down significantly for 90% of players. And the paper states that although higher skill player retention may have increased during this test, the lower and mid-skill players drop off over time. The higher skill player base takes over matchmaking. The company claims that we would expect to see the player population erode rapidly in the span of a few months, resulting in a negative outcome for all our players. They also conducted a test where skill was tightened in matchmaking for a portion of the player base, and the inverse effect happened. Higher skill players quit matches more often, and many of those players did not return to the game. In this paper, Activision explained that reducing skill factor would represent a marginal performance increase for the highly skilled players, but would only be for short-term gain. The higher skilled players are likely to get more matches where they could blow out the competition in the short term. But when that occurs, the competition tends to play less, and the result is that the player pool shrinks overall. And the company claimed that when low and mid-skill players exit the core multiplayer pool, high-skill players are more likely to encounter other high-skill players in matchmaking by default. The white paper also revealed that ping remains even across all different skill pools in matchmaking, reiterating several times that ping remains the most important factor in Call of Duty's matchmaking process. However, there may be slight deviations in ping in skill groups based on the availability of certain players during certain matchmaking time. Activision said a healthier player population is good for everyone in the community and promised to release another white paper on how skill factors into ranked play's matchmaking system later this summer. I've said it on the channel before, and feel free to let us know if you agree or disagree. Respectfully, of course. I have a really hard time believing that the concept of skill-based matchmaking or engagement-optimized matchmaking is genuinely for the player experience. I think this is a case where developers are benefiting more than the consumer. Casual gamers play video games on average 1 hour per weekday, most of the time in the evening or night. They usually don't play on a daily basis and will only play when their schedules allow them to do so. Instead, they play easy games on weekends or occasionally after work. This might be a hot take, but what's for you will be for you. If I suck at a game, I will either try to get better at the game or I simply just won't play it. Saying that to say, I think developers need to cater to their core consumers and not players who may or may not get on the game randomly. For example, I suck at Valorant. I would love to get better at the game, but at this point, I do not have the time to try to sharpen those Valorant skills just because I am prioritizing Call of Duty and X-Defiant. So why would Valorant developers try and make me stay on their game when I don't even really plan on playing their game for more than just a couple of hours a week? Or hell, maybe even a couple of hours every few months. Again though, maybe I'm just bugging, but let's talk about what we can do to try to reduce the effects of skill-based matchmaking in Call of Duty. Again, you can start to practice this now in Modern Warfare 3, and you can also try to practice this when Black Ops 6 launches. All of this is kind of case by case, but I think everything here I am going to mention is worth trying. Now, there is no getting rid of skill-based matchmaking. Know that. And I'm also not saying all of these things we're going to mention are the end-all be-all. These are theories that I and other notable names in the community have practiced and have been practicing. And no, we're not going to say anything about VPNs or anything like that. These are things you can start to implement instantly. So first, try to squad up. Playing with friends of various skill levels can sometimes balance out the matchmaking system. Not saying this is the end-all be-all. Once again, there is a chance that lower skilled players will struggle. But if you have someone in your squad that isn't the most skilled, take them under your wing. Be patient with them, and by them just having you as that support system, this can make the gaming experience so much better for them, even if they aren't crushing it in lobbies. But squatting up does help, especially when you can get a full 6. Next, if you take the squad up approach, compare stats. Now, I'm not saying compare stats to try to make things a meat measuring contest or anything like that, but for the person that has the lowest score per minute, try to prioritize them as host. You can consider other factors such as KD and win-loss, but I would not prioritize those because there is a chance a player with a high KD or win-loss is a very slow player, which will cause them to have a lower score per minute. Also, after a few games, keep an eye on how everyone has been doing. So let's say you are host and you have been top fragging for the last few games. Consider making someone that was at the bottom 3 of the scoreboard the new host. This theory I started to try back in Modern Warfare 19 with the squad, and I don't know if it was placebo or what, but it definitely seemed to work. And if your platform calls for it, turn off crossplay. I have heard players say on PC, if they turned off crossplay, things got worse. The introduction of crossplay really seemed to make the gaming experience a little more frustrating for the Call of Duty community. Not only because of cheaters, But some PC rigs just give players a competitive advantage over console players, such as lower input latency and higher frames. Now this next one, I know it's not feasible for everyone, but try to play during non-peak hours. Now I'm not saying call off work or anything like that, but if you have a random day off during the week, maybe a Wednesday or a Thursday, try to play between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. Most people are either at work or school. During the week though, it can be very random. The only consistent pattern I've noticed is on Sundays. The competition is pretty light until about 5 p.m. After that, the Sunday night sweats are usually in full swing. For some reason, the competition gets really tough between 5 and 10 p.m. on Sundays. And next, focus on one game mode at a time. When you are playing public matches or the quick playlist or whatever the case may be, only toggle one or two game modes. For example, only toggle domination if this is your game mode of choice, instead of toggling domination, control, search and destroy, capture the flag, all at one time. The algorithm will pretty much pass you around like a thought. So if you get a few games of domination in and you get bored with that, go ahead and toggle off domination and toggle on capture the flag. Again, just an example, but definitely try taking that approach. Another cool thing is you might be able to stay in the same lobby this way. I was literally playing Search and Destroy last night on Modern Warfare 3 with only Search and Destroy toggled, and we played the same group of guys 3 or 4 times in a row, so that was pretty cool. Now, lastly and most importantly, you do have to just adapt. I know that might not be what you want to hear, but when you are playing against really good players, you have to figure out a different game plan, whether it be coordinating things with your team or changing up your entire play style. As you can tell by my gameplay, I usually play super aggressive by nature, but when I'm in a lobby playing against players who are pretty decent, my first step is to slow down and understand that I am gonna have to use my mind to win this and not my aim and aggression, if that makes sense. Everyone else might have their different approaches as far as adapting, but that's just how I roll. If you have any more ideas of what we can try to do to make the skill-based matchmaking experience better, let us know down below. And if you made it to the end of the video, thank you for sticking around. And if you dug the content, once again, consider subscribing as we chase down our first 1K subs here on the channel. Let's go ahead and make that happen. And I'll drop another video for you on the screen right here. Thank you all for your time. All y'all take care, and I'm out.